Hey folks, we're just ironing out some technical difficulties real quick and we'll be starting in just a second.
Good afternoon. We are here today to share some good news for renters in our state who are still struggling to cover their rent payments. We're also making a really important announcement, I think, about economic aid to our businesses in Washington State to see them through this pandemic. I'm also joined by Commerce Director Lisa Brown and State Health Director Dr. Kathy Lofi. As you know, we've imposed an eviction moratorium, and I am announcing today that we are extending the rental eviction moratorium through the end of the year, through December 31st. It was set to expire this week, so I wanted to get people an answer as soon as I could. We certainly don't need more housing insecurity in the moment of uncertainty during this pandemic. We will have an updated proclamation for that moratorium in the days to come with the specifics in that regard. Now, on to helping businesses, which we're happy to do. My staff and I have worked tirelessly to develop reopening guidance that happily has allowed more businesses and more economic activity to resume. We announced some of that yesterday or day before yesterday. We've been doing that now for a couple months. We're pleased by that, but we know that there's still difficulties out there with many businesses. So today, Commerce Director Lisa Brown and I are announcing a new slate of assistance programs on our road to recovery. It's funded through a $15 million grant to our state through the Federal Economic Development Administration. As you know, we have previously issued $25 million in grants for partnerships through our Department of Commerce to keep small businesses afloat. We're glad to have been able to do that. And it's been very gratifying to see small business people who've been able to use this in creative ways to keep their businesses going. The department also recently announced a resiliency assistance program for small business owners who are non-English speaking people of color. And we have provided emergency grants in a number of industries, including export assistance to small growers and funding for struggling nonprofits. Each of these efforts help us respond to the unique challenges that are facing specific regions, sectors, and communities in our state. We certainly need all hands on deck to help our business owners through this time. We want to keep Washingtonian workers employed, and we want to strengthen our state's economy to make it more equitable and resilient. And I believe we are going to get through this because we are going to knock down these infection numbers over time, and we are going to rebuild our economy. We had essentially the best economy, or one of the best economies in the United States before the COVID hit us, and there's no reason we can't be in that position again as we come out of this. But in the interim, we're glad we're being able to open up some businesses and help those stay afloat during this time. So for more on this important and timely effort, I want to turn it over to Commerce Director Lisa Brown. And after we hear from Lisa, we'll hear from one of the business owners that are benefiting from this work. Lisa.
Thank you, Governor. Pleased to be with you this afternoon to share this announcement. We all know there's a lot of uncertainty out there for businesses. There's uncertainty about the trajectory of the virus. There's uncertainty about the economic effects globally. There's uncertainty in federal policy. And the way that we are dealing with that is tracking what's happening in our state, both by sector as well as by region, and what's happening to specific demographic groups with these challenges, whether it's small businesses traditionally underrepresented or the challenges facing working families that may play out differently for men and for women. And we're also building partnerships. And I believe those partnerships are the key to what we're announcing today. We've received a $15 million grant from the Economic Development Administration, and it's one of the largest of these types of grants in the country. And I think it really is because of the 8 project partners that we're working with. The projects are in 3 major areas. There's restart of businesses. There's the rebuild piece, which is about helping businesses and communities build back in a more equitable way or pivot to the changes that have been caused by the virus. And then there are the longer-term resilience projects, and that's about our innovative culture in Washington State and how to create regional clusters of economic activity that we can both build on and grow new ones so that everyone can participate in the economy. And most of these projects come down to connecting entrepreneurs and businesses to resources. And when I say resources, I don't just mean funding, although that, of course, is very, very key, but also technical assistance, linguistically and culturally appropriate information as to what to do and how to do it in a complex world of different federal and state programs. And so we are doing this with partners. I want to particularly mention some of our Safe Start project partners, such as the Small Business Development Center at WSU, Impact Washington, the Thurston Economic Development Council, one of the example of our regional partners all over the state. Our next speaker, Agung Sodaman, will tell you a little bit more about what happens when those partners come together to work with a business on their vision and their business plan. And looking forward to hearing that story in just a few minutes. Another one of these projects that we're really excited about is a rebuild project that we're working on with the University of Washington, IHME, that's our Institute for Health Metrics. And that modeling project we are doing as a pilot. And the goal here is for early detection and prevention of outbreaks. And we know we have a lot of essential workers out there. This pilot project is beginning in our fisheries industry, and the IHME will work with the industry and with a survey tool that will allow them to detect early outbreaks and be able to prevent them from spreading. And we're very hopeful that the success of this pilot will allow us then to take it to other types of essential industries, such as in agriculture or in healthcare. Further, we are working on building industry clusters, and we all know that our state's strong sectors in tech, in wood products, and other things are all challenged in different ways by the pandemic. And so these are the types of partnerships and projects that we will be able to develop over the next period of time with this federal grant. I'd like to mention a couple of the other partners engaged with us on this. AWB, Association of Washington Business, Restart Partners, the National Development Council. In many ways, the grant is seed money for these initiatives and to see what works. And we know that the path to recovery is not automatic or easy, but we think with this spectrum of programs and initiatives, we can look forward to successful businesses and more opportunities for Washington families. So thank you, Governor.
So for your leadership, it's made a big difference. So to hear from one of the businesses who knows about this, Agung Sodamin is here. He is General Manager of Cutting Edge Meats and S&J Food Distributors. It's in Pierce County. And his business has a great story to tell. Thank you, Mr. Sotomin.
Well, thank you for having me here, Governor. S&J Food and Cutting Edge is a small distribution company out of Tacoma. And it started out as a food distributions for taco trucks, primarily in Tacoma and Seattle area. As taco truck grows to become restaurants, we grow alongside with them and continue to support all the small businesses as well, and we grow together. Along the way, I think part of our success is that we are fortunate enough that we have received support from our local agencies, local cities, I guess, to help with several projects that we have supporting our growth. It begins actually with a call that I made to economic development from City of Tacoma. Pat was kind enough to assemble a group of several different agencies to put together. So on our initial meeting, I was introduced to Maddie from Economic Development Board, and then I got introduced to Linda, also in the meeting, from Minority Business Development Agencies, as well as Jeff from Impact Washington. Through that meeting, they actually asked me, said, what do you need support for? What is it that you're looking for that we can provide? I think that was the biggest impact in our success in that sense, because out of that meeting, they come up with proposals with numerous different arms, in a sense, to help our business. So the first one was they are able to provide us with certification to become minority business entity. And then also we have a project where Cutting Edge was moving location from Tacoma to Lakewood. And I was also introduced to Becky from Economic Development from City of Lakewood, where they provide a lot of technical stuff, permitting and whatnot. Impact Washington provide us with technical support with their consultant as far as navigating USDA regulations. So then we don't have to actually think or worry about what we need to do, because the consultant helped us through the steps moving the USDA processing plant from one location to the next. And then many others to include support during the COVID period. Impact Washington provide us with a technical assistant to provide with the COVID prevention manual and many others. So those are some of the great support that all these agencies provide for us and to support our growth, so then we can focus on actually doing our business and then running our business and planning our business, rather than worrying about all the technical part that these partners has provided to us.
Agung, thank you for your business leadership. We're glad to have been able to help, and we're going to look forward to you building our economy one business at a time. So thanks very much. So we also have something I want to talk about during our continuing battle with COVID. As you know, we've had some outbreaks that are concerning, particularly at our fraternities and sororities, that are contributing to some recent upticks. And so we need to be creative and innovative, and we have an announcement in that regard. We are helping a very useful tool in getting access to COVID-19 tests if you think you need one. The Department of Health's website COVID-19 page now has a test site locator service, and you can look up the most convenient location for you to get a COVID test online at doh.wa.gov, doh.wa.gov. We hope to help out. I want to note some important oral arguments took place in Washington's multi-state lawsuit challenging the Trump administration attempts to roll back our nation's clean power plan. I think it's very unfortunate at this time of climate change and all the things it's causing that they want to replace it with a plan that does not require significant reductions in pollution, in carbon emissions. And now that's what they continually try to do, which is to reduce our protection against pollution from fossil fuels. Fortunately, Washington State Attorney General Bob Ferguson is on the job as always, and we are joined by 21 other states and 7 local governments challenging the administration's decision to expose us to the health risks of pollution from these plants. And unfortunately, this is just one of the administration's attempts to prop up the fossil fuel interests at the expense of Americans' health, at the expense of our children who are suffering greatly from asthma, at the expense of our health of people who have respiratory and cardiac issues. The federal government has a legal responsibility to keep our families safe from dirty and polluted air and from the escalating dangers that are posed by climate change. And I may note that the pollution from these plants obviously contribute to climate change, but even without a change in the climate, they are a first order assault on our lungs. And our children are breathing toxics from burning fossil fuels that this measure would reduce, even if the climate had not been affected. So this is first and foremost a health issue. It causes many premature deaths and disability and breathing problems in our children. And we ought to stick up against those efforts. And we have the state government have an obligation to do the same. And we will continue to work on these issues in our state as we've led in our clean energy sector job creation. With that, happy to stand for questions, and I know Lisa and Agun will as well.
All right, first we'll go to Rachel LaCourte with AP. Rachel, go ahead.
Governor, given the news today that 13 people have been charged in a plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, has your office received any information from the FBI about similar threats here, and has additional security measures been taken?
I'm pausing for a moment to answer your question to see what information I'm at liberty to disclose. If you will, I need to check with some of our intelligence forces to see what we're at liberty to disclose. I will tell you that this is very disturbing to me. I know Governor Whitmer personally. I know she has shown great courage throughout these tumultuous times. It is very unfortunate that she has been troubled, not just directly by these threats, but constant barrage of really, frankly, incendiary criticism from the president. And I think that's been very unfortunate. But I know she's a very strong person, and I'm serious about that. There's nothing going to deter Gretchen Whitmer from standing up for her people, and I'm confident that will not slow her down one iota. If I may, let me give you a more clear answer to that after I confer with some of our intelligence folks. And to answer the question, there will be appropriate security provided for your governor, I'm sure.
Rachel, did you want to ask a follow-up?
Yeah, and this question is for either the governor or I don't know if Secretary Wiesman or anyone from DOH is on the call, but you mentioned the test site locator service due to the spike in cases at the fraternities and sororities. But last month, a team from the National Guard was sent to Pullman when WSU was a hot spot. So I'm just wondering if there are any similar plans to do the same at UW.
Kathy, do you want to handle that question?
Sure. So at the Department of Health, we've been working with a number of different testing agencies and have been able to deploy different testing teams around the state, really as they're asked for. All public health is local. Our local health departments are really the first and, the first folks on the ground to address the public health issues. And we can provide services if we are asked for assistance. And I am not aware that the University of Washington needs any assistance at this time.
We are so concerned about the fraternities and sororities behavior, frankly, that is exposing us all to great risk, and it has to change. This just has to change. We appreciate some of the administration that has made that clear to the students. We may have something to say about the upcoming days, but they have to become more rigorous in their supervision of their fellow Greek members. And they've got to step up and take responsibility for this, because these things can just blow up, and frankly, they are. So in the upcoming days, we're going to need some leadership of folks in the Greek system. We're going to make that clear, and there will be consequences if we don't get that leadership, because this is too deadly to ignore. So we'll have more to say about that in the upcoming days.
Okay, and before we go to our next question, I think David Postman wanted to make a clarification.
Am I on there now?
Yes.
Yeah, David, go ahead.
Yeah, hold on 1 second here. Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Yeah, Governor, I just thought I would respond to the question that Rachel had about security and your follow-up. Obviously, there's things we're not at liberty to talk about. We don't have any what I would consider similar active threats. In terms of the governor's security, we don't respond to specific questions about that. I can tell you that we get threats on a regular basis, and the State Patrol takes them very seriously. I think there's been some arrests this year, and there's certainly around this and at this time an increased chatter about these sorts of things online. But we've not seen any attempt or anything of that sort. And, in terms of details, we just obviously don't share details of security about the governor or his family, but quite confident in the State Patrol's ability to protect them all.
And if I may, one thing we can share is that we are so grateful for the State Patrol and their professionalism. What they have done with us is just extraordinary to give us a sense of security. They've acted so professionally. And it's not just the Executive Protection Unit. I just want to note, in the last 3 months, there have been 3 Washington State troopers who have encountered drivers going the wrong way on the freeway, and they intentionally drove their car and took the collision in their car to save people behind them. And it's almost like, routine heroism that they do. And I just want to express my appreciation for the state troopers' work.
All right, with that, we'll go to our next question, which comes from Joe Sullivan with Seattle Times. Go ahead, Joe.
Governor, you've extended the eviction moratorium a few times now, and you've made some notable tweaks to it along the way. Is your latest extension going to be pretty much what the last one was, or are you considering other substantial tweaks to it?
I don't think that, and we will do the details in this in the next couple of days, I don't think any tweaks would be considered substantial. They're quite modest.
Joe, did you want to ask a follow-up?
Yeah, for Dr. Lofi, I'm curious, outside of the campus outbreaks, what sort of trends are you seeing otherwise in terms of outbreaks? Are they businesses, social gatherings, any particular region around the state?
Yeah, thanks for that question. We do watch closely all of the outbreaks that are being reported by your local health jurisdictions. And unfortunately, we're still just seeing outbreaks occur in a very wide variety of settings. We still are seeing, outbreaks in food processing plants, retail establishments, some childcare, and some, educational environments. Unfortunately, it's just very, disease activity just continues to be widespread in the communities where it's spreading, and it's spreading in multiple different environments. We are also hearing about continued social events. And so this is a good time to just remind everybody just how important it is to make sure that you're wearing a facial covering and keeping your distance from others, not only when you're out in public at a grocery store or at a retail store, but even more importantly, when you're at home or if you have friends come over to your house and are socializing. We need to have those facial coverings on when we are socializing, because we are still hearing about, disease spreading in social settings as well.
Okay. With that, we'll go to Drew Mickelson from King 5. Go ahead, Drew.
Governor, non-tribal card rooms have had to move their games outdoors. The owners and operators are worried with the changing seasons that they will not be able to keep those tents essentially going through the fall and winter. Any movement on getting them back inside? We've seen bowling alleys and movie theaters. They say they can't compete with the tribal casinos. Do you see those card rooms getting to go back indoors anytime soon?
Well, we continue to talk to businesses to see if there is a way to do that. Are there protocols that could be established that would allow that to happen safely? We haven't been able to come up with those yet, but we'll continue to talk to industries to see if there's a way to do that. We have had notable success, as you know, in the last couple months, working with industries to figure out how to do this safely. If that happens, that would be great. We'll continue to talk to them to see if there is a way. At the moment, though, in the card rooms, there are places that people really sit for hours at a time, very close to one another, and that is a risk factor we have to be aware of. But we'll keep looking for protocols that would work.
Drew, did you want to ask a follow-up question?
I do not. Thank you.
All right. With that, we'll go to Jim Camden from the Spokesman Review. Go ahead, Jim.
Thank you, Governor. Is the state going to do anything with by extending the moratorium on evictions, do anything to help landlords who aren't getting rent and in some cases haven't for 6 months or so, or the tenants who, whenever this moratorium ends, are going to owe a significant amount of money in back rent?
Yeah, well, as far as the back rent, as part of this, we've required people to be reasonable in the negotiations of these things. And there is an incentive by landlords to keep their lessees, in the residence, even if the moratorium is lifted. So we hope that will be the case. The assistance to the landlords, we're always looking for a way to help businesses, as our grant program has suggested today. Our ability to do so is somewhat dependent to see if Congress acts. Is Congress going to get off the dime and help us be in a position to help folks like this? They have not acted yet. It's very disappointing. I was stunned when the president announced that he was cutting off negotiations for this the other day, and then apparently he wanted to start off a few hours later. I don't know what to make of that. But we would hope Congress would keep working on this so we can be in a position to assist people. If they succeeded, that could be in the cards. They can't guarantee it because we don't know what they're going to do. But they need to help. Look, the Fed chairman appointed by Donald Trump the other day said our economy needs that right now. Our economy is fragile right now. It needs that infusion of confidence, frankly, kind of desperately. So I hope we are all talking to our members of Congress to assist them and inspire them to further effort in this regard. And we just hope that the president would not again block this needed relief.
Jim, did you want to ask a follow-up question?
Yes. By extending this to December 31st, is that an acknowledgement that you expect the pandemic to be strong through the rest of the year?
Well, listen, we're always trying to make the best estimates we can. But I do believe that it is likely that we will have significant pandemic still in our state to some degree. Now, we obviously want to make it as minimal as possible. And as the doctor told us 2 days ago that we can do this. This is the thing that I always want to stress, the can-do attitude. We can do this if we're all wear masks. Most of us are, but not all of us are right now. Some people are still think it's an identity statement, not just a simple way to save your life and your friends. So if we do those things, we'll have a chance to continue to knock these numbers down. But listening to Dr. Fauci and our medical advisors and folks in the pharmaceutical and biosciences that I've been talking to, I think we are going to be having to work in a responsible way for the next few months. And that's something that we can do successfully. We have the power to do that. It is in our hands and on our faces to minimize the disruption.
All right. Next, we'll go to Essex Porter from Cairo 7. Go ahead, Essex.
Yes, my first question is for Secretary Brown. How crucial is this new assistance for the small businesses that you've been in touch with, and how grateful have they been to be offered this assistance?
Well, thank you for that question. There's a couple of aspects of this. We have this business resiliency network underway, as the governor mentioned already. That's 20 organizations around the state that are connecting their trusted voices with businesses and entrepreneurs in their community. And that would be everything from the Federal Way Black Collective to Tri-Cities Hispanic Business Council. And so that network, whenever a program like this grant comes along, or if we are ever to see federal funds come our way, that network will help connect businesses to those resources. And there is that ongoing technical assistance as well. So we've got success stories out there. Agungs is just one of many, and but we know it's not going to be easy. This is going to be a tough period of time for many businesses, and so we'll be continuing to work both with our federal delegation and ultimately with the legislature, both to let them know what's happening, sector by sector, county by county, and to talk with them about policies that can be of support to businesses as they're restarting, hopefully surviving and thriving through this challenging time.
We can help too as shoppers. We can make decisions to shop locally, shop with small business people, be considerate of them, see if they can help them along the way. We all have consumption habits we can think about. I encourage people to, shop locally, shop small business, help these folks out right now.
Essex, did you want to ask a follow-up question?
Yes, Governor, a question for you. Do you have any second thoughts about describing Mr. Culp's supporters as Trumpians last night? It sounded divisive.
Well, no, I just don't understand this. Look, my opponent is a devotee, an acolyte, total follower of Donald Trump. His rallies are festooned with Trump flags. These folks, I thought, were very proud of supporting Donald Trump. They trumpet the fact that they support Donald Trump. So I don't understand why they're not proud of that. Shoot, if somebody described me as a Biden head, it wouldn't break my heart. You ought to be proud of this. So it wasn't meant to disparage anyone. It is to point out that what my opponent is doing is very dangerous right now in continually sabotaging our efforts to have masks that can save lives and are saving lives. He has attempted in every way to discourage people. He doesn't wear masks himself. He doesn't model this behavior. And he continually says that my orders are illegal when he knows, according to the courts, none of which have thrown out my orders. So these are legitimate questions, and people have the right to vote for Donald Trump. I jealously guard that. In fact, I want to make sure we count those ballots when people vote for Donald Trump and my opponent. We want to make sure we count those ballots, and every ballot should be counted. And if I am given this honor for another 4 years, I can guarantee you I'm gonna work for Donald Trump supporters just as hard as I vote for anybody else's supporters. And I've done that many occasions. In fact, I was in Malden, the town that burned down in these fires the other day, and a lot of Culp signs I noticed, but I'm working for those people. Those are great people. They deserve a governor to work for them. I can guarantee you I'm going to do that if I'm given this opportunity.
All right. Next, we'll go to Alexis Carl with the News Tribune. Go ahead, Alexis.
Governor, do you think the state law that governs proclamations and extensions during an emergency is sufficient? Are there any changes you'd like to see given your experience these past months?
Well, I think that our state has been very successful in very difficult times. We have knocked down this virus dramatically. We have saved hundreds, if not thousands of lives. I think the science is clear in that regard. And we have now, just to give you a sense of that, we know that every loss is a tragedy, but 45 other states and the District of Columbia had higher infection rates than we did per capita yesterday. So we have had a lot of success here relative to other states. And this is even though we were the first hit and the hardest hit. So I think what we have been doing has been working significantly. So I would not suggesting changing something that has worked in this regard. And that's not to say we're out of the woods. As you know, there's a lot more work to do.
Alexis, did you want to ask a follow-up question?
Yes, please. Commerce Director, can you talk about any specific requirements there might be for businesses to qualify for this aid?
Well, that's a really good question, because one of the complaints about at least the early wave of federal funding was that it was very difficult to access for businesses, especially smaller ones, and especially those less connected to traditional financial institutions. And so part of the goal here is to knock down those barriers. And to knock them down, you have to understand what they are. That's why this Business Resiliency Network is very important. The governor's Safe Start and Economic Recovery Advisory Group has also been a part of this. We've got small business owners on that group who connected us to others. We've had listening sessions so we can understand what some of the issues are. In general, for the grants that have gone out around the state, we've used our partnership organizations, which are associate development organizations designated by each county. And they have, with this most recent round of grants, set their own criteria, with the idea being that they are the ones that know their communities. Nevertheless, we've asked and are monitoring that the grants go out equitably, both by region and with respect to different demographic groups. And the technical assistance that was described by Goong is the kind of thing which also gives us feedback, frankly, to understand where federal, state, and local government requirements may either be conflicting or confusing. And so this is not the end of a conversation. It's really the beginning of a conversation about what those businesses need to succeed. But I want to echo the governor. There are ways to safely support them, and they are being innovative and looking to connect with their communities, and really want to encourage everyone to connect with them and support them.
Okay. Next, we'll go to Keith Eldridge with COMO. Go ahead, Keith.
Yes, to follow on with Director Senator Brown, there are some businesses who are not able to restart yet because they have to come up to COVID standards, one of them being the Ark Lodge cinemas in Columbia City in Seattle. Might they be eligible for some of these federal grant monies?
Certainly, they might be. We know that hospitality, recreation, and entertainment performance businesses are certainly particularly challenged. And so one piece, as we know, as Dr. Lofi and the governor indicated, is working with them to understand what the protocols are for reopening safely or expanding safely. And then another piece is assistance. And that's why both grants technical assistance, potentially connecting them to federal loan funds is part of the program here. And if the pilot project with IHME is successful, then another piece of this will be an early detection system that can potentially be used in other industries, and that will be great because one part of business success is not having to shut down or ramp back because of the virus.
And for Mr. Solomon, we had a chance to visit your distribution plant in Tacoma today. How important is this grant money going to be for you to survive the COVID?
It is actually, I apologize that I got muted. So it is very important for us to receive some of those grants simply because the technical support that we receive, whether that be through Impact Washington or through minority business development agencies, all of those are being put to use to keep not only the employee here employed, but also to get us move forward as far as future is concerned. So we will be able to plan ahead by Impact Washington, for instance, provide us with the technical assistance on how are we being more efficient in running our operations. We just purchased a new building next door to our facility, which we now remodel, with having two separate facilities, which is in a sense inefficient at this point. But Impact Washington has offered the technical assistance how to make those segregated warehouses become more efficient with their technical expertise. So all of those in the form of a technical assistance or in other form is critical for us to be successful in what we do.
Next, we'll go to Jerry Cornfield with the Everett Herald, and this should be our last question. Go ahead, Jerry.
Dr. Lofi, I want to just follow up with something you said earlier that you'd seen outbreaks in a number of settings, including educational institutions, other than what we've talked about, heard about at UW, WSU. Have you heard any public schools, the K through 12 public schools that have begun reopening, or some private schools? Have there been outbreaks in any of those settings?
Yeah, we have heard about a few situations of limited spread in some K through 12 schools. To be honest, I don't know if it was a public or a private school. And we've been doing a lot of work within the public health system to make sure that, when our local health jurisdictions do respond to cases that may happen in a school, that we're doing, we're responding in, a standard, consistent way, and in a comprehensive way so that we can, learn as much as possible as we can when we do see, spread in a school environment. It's a issue that's incredibly important to us. We want our kids to be back in school for in-person learning, and we want them to be safe and healthy when they're back in school. So there's just a lot of focus on that particular sector at this point. We do post an outbreak report on our website once a week, and there is a column that shows, K through 12 schools. So we do indicate the number of outbreaks that have been reported from K through 12 schools in the past week, and then since the pandemic started. So I encourage you all to take a look at that.
Do you want to ask me follow-up?
Thank you very much. Argun, thank you for your leadership. I want you to know we're going to do everything we can to knock this pandemic down so we can get everybody back to business. And I want you to know I'm doing everything I can to ask people to help you by wearing a mask so that we can do that and get everybody back to business. So you've been an inspiration. Thank you very much. Please take care. Mask up.